Hello and welcome. My name is Erica Brajas and I'm a printmaking artist in Oakland, California, here in the United States. In 2021, I proposed a collaborative project to the California Society of Printmakers and was awarded a membership engagement grant. I'm so grateful for the CSP for their support and mentorship throughout the process of planning and implementing the eMERGE print exchange and exhibition that we're here to talk about today. The results of the eMERGE project are this portfolio, which contains original hand-pulled prints from 13 different artists, the online exhibition that can be viewed via the link in the description of this video, and the associated exposure for the participating artists. For those of you watching, I hope you have viewed or will view the online exhibition. If not, please make sure to check it out after watching today's artist talk. During our time today, we will hear from 3 of the artists who participated in the eMERGE print exchange: Olga Perron, Allison Walker, and Laura Wellington. Olga is one of our 2 international participants, and we're meeting for the first time today. I recently learned that she's studying to become a full stack developer, which is helping her integrate her love of science and patterns with her artistic identity. Thank you, Olga, for making time during your busy school schedule to meet with us all the way from Toronto, Canada. Allison Walker joins us from Minneapolis, Minnesota. She and I printed alongside each other, sometimes late into the night, while earning our BFAs in printmaking from Western Michigan University. I'm so grateful to have met Allison in the first place and to have the opportunity to collaborate on this project. And then we have Laura Wellington, who operates under her artist name Pizkit, and she organized a print exchange in 2020 called Lacuna, which inspired me to organize this project. She and I met through the San Francisco Center for the Book when we both carved linoleum plates to be printed by Steamroller at the Center for the Book's annual Printmaking and Book Arts Festival. So glad to continue developing our artistic relationship, Laura. I'd like to officially start off the talk by having each of you introduce yourselves further and share a little bit about the print that you submitted to the eMERGE exchange. Olga, will you tell us about yourself and your print?
Thank you so much, Erica. Hi, my name is Olga. I've been pursuing art all of my life in its various forms. My interest stems from my love of patterns, mathematicals, and the visual sensation. It is true, I am currently studying to become a full stack developer, and that is because I want to incorporate all of my visual talents along with what I can make inside of the computer space as well. The theme of merging and emerging is what prompted me to join this exhibition because it is so closely tied to my personal experience as an artist and a feminist. Most of my work is either entirely anonymous or known to a small number of supporters. And so before we begin and I begin to color in the meaning behind my piece, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share my ideas with the international audience. Right now, we are pulled apart by a global event, and the space created through sharing our ideas brings us together in a really meaningful way. I wanted to explain a little bit about my print itself. So the piece that I created for this exhibition, it tells the story of a day in the life of the sun. And like in folklore and mythology, her story is an explanation of natural events, and it is a loop. So the image binds references to geographic location and the lens through which we see the femme. To evoke that feeling of California as it appears in my eyes, I reference the sun's warmth through the red and the orange tones, and I'm calling on the image of water through her hair. It's heavy with the surf and it's whipping through the sky as she governs how the day elapses. And then it's running back to her feet and through the pull of the current, at the end of the day. And then it begins all over again. Her body is twisting apart, it's merging together through these unmoving hips, and she is elastic, and her hand gestures give clean and expressive feeling while remaining exact and concise. This imagery of contortion and control, I'm trying to reference my home and the circus troupe Cirque du Soleil, hence the name as well, because I wanted to reference this traditional representation of the sun goddess. I actually searched out examples, and in my research, I discovered that We rarely uncover the sun deity as feminine. And so I wanted to add to the short list of feminine sun goddesses and create my own strong femme imagery and then frame it in historical iconography. To evoke the sense of tradition in this work, I used like the thickness of the ink and the lines to give her sovereignty and authority. And this bold style refers to depictions of the divine found in manuscripts. And even the process and the look of the lino cut is meant to solidify a call to historical practices and the sense of an alternative history. The way you view this work will differ based on the lens of your personal experience, but I hope that hearing my explanation gave you a little bit of an understanding of the individual components behind the overall iconography of Femme du Soleil. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. And next up, we're going to hear from Allison. What would you like to share about yourself and your print?
I guess like this print and kind of the eMERGE print exchange itself was kind of, it came at a time where I think I had just, like everything is happening. I had just moved to Minneapolis in the December of 2019, the most auspicious time to move. And like a lot of things were radically changing. And like, I think it was about the time that I had quit my job because that was going drastically bad. And then just kind of was in this mixed state. And the theme kind of hit me in that spot where it's like, it's merging all of these disparate pieces together in one space because your entire life is, you know, the two rooms that you live in. And then kind of this asking to emerge into a space and who is asking that, and kind of in my print, which I have, as I was going through it, I lovingly said it was about as subtle as Banksy on Broadway. Just because I kept asking myself, who is asking us to go out? And I like how even now that has not changed. At that time when it was made, it was right at the beginning of this, and people were still asking to open up, let's get back out there. And it's like, who is asking this? And it's somebody is always going to be devouring, and someone's feasting on the misery and the sacrifices of people lower. And even now that the table has lengthened and the people who are at it are feasting upon the people with disabilities, with pre-existing conditions. So trying to take all of that energy and all of that pent-up frustration and kind of channel it into this print that is, I guess, obvious, but I'll stop being obvious when they stop being so obvious about it. So yeah.
Allison, do you want to say anything more about your print?
All right. So kind of talking a little bit more about the print itself, which was just imagine kind of just run a bull in a china shop process. So where I thought out a few things, would change it, and thought out some more things in the process. And I'm like, oh, this would make more sense. So like the original people at the feast are just brashly Google search or internet search top 20 richest people. And these are all caricatures based off of these people. So if you bring in the screen up, this is a very rough cut lino. So the caricatures are sort of there. You could probably guess there's a Bezos in there somewhere. But kind of this idea of these are all the rich people at the feast. And then this big creature that is coming out and being like, guess what? You're invited, but you're not the one behind it. You're not the one at the table. So midway through the process, I message Erica. I'm like, how do you feel if something, you know, extends beyond the border of it? Because I'm like, this isn't complicated enough. I wonder if I can make this worse. Because I really wanted to find a way to incorporate all of these headlines, and there were a lot, as a way to say like this big tongue coming out and trying to wrap you up because you are joining them in this fashion. You are being devoured. So you have like this open sign sprayed on there, with all of these headlines underneath, and that is how you join them. It's very specifically saying you, the viewer, are not the one that are benefiting from this. This is your place. So kind of this very chaotic way of making a print. So.
Great, Allison, thank you so much. And you can see the print behind me on the wall over here too. It's she designed it in a way where you can fold the cheesecloth back in so it fits within the dimensions of the portfolio. And I thought that was very technically well done.
It's the least I could do for being like, hey, what if I made your life harder?
No, honestly, it wasn't. It was very inspiring and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I think we're all better for it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Allison. All right, Laura, help us get to know you a little bit and tell us about your print.
Sure. I've always been an artist, was the one coloring on walls, and my parents wanted me to get into music, but I decided that my beautiful white piano they bought me was a lovely blank canvas instead. So I was definitely more visually minded than musically so, and in college I tried to be an engineer, but quickly found myself in the printmaking department, just fascinated by the machines and the way to interact with both, similar to Olga, the science and the art in one. And so after graduating, still found myself seeking out printmaking. Unfortunately, couldn't carry those presses with me, so had to find the communities. And the great thing about printmaking is that everybody in the community is so open and sharing and willing to help each other. And of all of the communities I've found, they're always so positive and so supportive. And I find that especially in this sort of climate, that this community of printmakers who are uplifting and encouraging and safe has been a really lovely harbor in a culture that becomes increasingly more negative and more distant and more disrespectful of others. And yeah, so I have continually gravitated towards the space of printmaking, and typically have been letterpress and lithography enthusiast. That is my preferred method of printmaking, but of course in these times with lack of access to those spaces, had to find other ways to produce the art that I wanted to speak about. So this print is a little bit about empty spaces, places that are forgotten and in disrepair, that speak also to the interior self. So a lot of people have had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of reconstruction of things and priorities that they have neglected or left behind. And if you don't mind pulling up the print, it's also about the emergence of the demons and the shadows that you've typically ignored because it's not societally correct. It's not something that you want to face. But now that you're alone in this abandoned shell, there's nothing to do but to face them down and to really expose them and have them emerge. And you can either fight them or accept them, or the way that you approach them is really up to you. And the print is not meant to dictate a path, but more just to encourage you to confront these because they aren't going anywhere. And then the extended title of my print, which I don't have written down because I came unprepared.
I've got it here if you'd like.
Thank you. Yes, if you wouldn't mind reading it.
Your version of love is being just good enough at talking to trick someone into letting you eat them alive.
Yep. And so, yeah, a little bit more subtle than the devouring at the feast, but pretty much in the same lines of the concept. So that's kind of where I was coming from.
And did you want to show us your separated layers of your print
Sure.
as well? Or is
Yeah,
that something you
so
were going to do later?
if now is, it seems like now is a good
Whatever
time.
makes sense to you.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm typically a lithographer, but without access to a lithopress and my beautiful limestones, I had to find another way. And so did stick to letterpress and did a CMYK separation that I will discuss the challenges of later, and ended up just doing a CMY, or sorry, a MKY print, but in my separation. So this would be the yellow plate, the magenta plate, and the black plate. And then on top of that, I did the little figures in charcoal and white charcoal, so that they merge and emerge into the print as the light hits them.
Oh, it's wonderful, Laura. Thank you so much for giving us all those details. All right, so the next question I have for you each is, now that we've learned about each of your prints, which I really think hopefully viewers will view them more closely, take some time with them with the online exhibition, and hopefully someday we'll do an in-person exhibition so that people can really see in person. It really, online only can do so much. But now that we've heard about the ideas behind your prints and how they were made a little bit, I'd like to hear if you had any challenges with the printmaking process. And we're going to start with this one. We're going to start with Olga again.
Thanks, Erica. The largest hurdle for this entire process is my insane obsession with perfectionism. I was so relieved and saved by the actual deadline, because without it, I think I might have sunk another 2 months into the image alone, working out an even more complicated gradient, even more precise registration. In total, this image went through 3 rounds of editioning. And I do mean editioning, we're talking about all 18 images completely completed and then stored in a case later on to do with I don't know what. So the first one was reversed and blue, and then it was scraped because I didn't like the story ending by her looking down. To me, at the end of the day, you're most free and you're questioning, and then the start of the day is the reserved and kind of slow vibe. And the next edition was similar to my final image, but the sunny hair was entirely orange. And because of one messy misprint, which ended up having an accidental gradient, I ended up reprinting the entire collection to include the gradients from that misprint. And then finally, because of the quality of the ink and its oil, it took forever to dry, and I miscalculated the dry time. And so I thought it was going to be 2 weeks. It ended up being around 3. So not only was I sitting there looking at my prints thinking, oh, if I could only fix the registration, but the time was also ticking down. And I ended up actually sending Erica my prints slightly wet, and she sent me a lovely picture of my work drying on the drying racks of her studio. So overall, I think the excitement of being able to show my work finally kind of let me overcome this idea of imperfection, slight imperfection. And so that was my largest challenge, just relaxing and letting the art be art.
Well, thank you so much. I do want to mention that Olga was so, some of this perfectionism does, have a functional role in our lives as printmakers, because when you have to make 10 things that look the same, you got to have some perfectionism there. She also sent along new fresh sheets of glassine so that I could relieve the prints together, and that was key. So thank you for that detail. I think those details are important, and we also need to relax. So thanks for that reminder. Allison, do you want to share any challenges that you had with your process?
Oh, criminy. The challenges usually was largely my printing studio is this lovely space right here. So it was trying to do what I wanted to do, but also maybe perhaps get my deposit back. So like I really, really wanted to do it might be really hard to tell because of the printmaking tool I use, but I really wanted to do Xerox transfers. But again, like Laura has said, the beautiful litho presses are long and far away from me. So I use the most primitive, basic, but luxurious model of printmaking tool, a spoon. So I had so many extra prints trying to do like a billion Xerox transfers with a spoon, which doesn't work great because it can misregister so easily. So you can get really a hazy print from just like the Xerox shifting a tiny bit. So that's that. And my favorite was the cheesecloth with the open sprayed on it. I thought it was very clever. I did it in my stainless steel sink and thought I had enough stuff set up, but I finished spraying. It's the fabric spray dye. So it wouldn't get like crunchy like spray paint would. I'm like, oh, that'll wipe off just fine. My granite around the sink was a little bit more red than it started. I'm just scrubbing it down. So a lot of the challenges came in with that. I'm so used to mixing ink for a press where you have so much extra pressure that you can get away with a drier ink or a stiffer ink because that will be on there. But other than, the classics, I had like a hand Baron from Japanese woodcut printmaking and used that. And then like, depending on if I had the right amount of ink on there, like sometimes the print would come through clear, sometimes it'd be splotchy. There's a couple of prints I sent that I wish were stronger than that, were a little more clean, but kind of time was crunching down and like I didn't have a lot of extra resources. So it's like you kind of have to accept like like Olga said, but to a much more extreme level, you've got to accept the imperfections of things and kind of the roughness of it, hopefully to the viewer will lend itself to a greater piece rather than detract from it. So
Thank you so much, Allison. I really admire your resilience and resourcefulness in your home studio. Well done. All right, Laura, and will you share with us any challenges that you encountered?
My many challenges. I was in contact with Erica throughout the whole period. Probably just sharing my email exchange with her would be a good snapshot of all the challenges that I went through. I started this print intending to do some polylitho plates, which is a thin polymer that you can draw on. It doesn't require any chemical processing. And I wanted to do it in color. I'm normally a black and white artist, but I thought that this print really needed some color to it. So did multi-plates, didn't have access to a press, so was going to hand print them all. And about halfway through printing my first layer, the print started lifting from the plate itself, and I wasn't getting printing litho by hand is really hard in the best of circumstances, and even with the trusty spoon, it was exhausting. And because my print was deteriorating and I needed to print 18 of them, just wasn't going to happen. So I was prepping a second just black and white image in anticipation that this would fail and I would just have to get something out to Erica before the deadline, while also sending out for polyester plates. So I turned this into a photograph image that I put through Photoshop to create polymer plates that actually print on a letterpress. I didn't, at the time that I made these plates, didn't have access to a letterpress, but thought, relief, well, I can certainly do relief by hand, but the fine detail of photopolymer to get this sort of gradation needs an incredible amount of pressure, which unfortunately these guns just don't really have. So I did print my entire edition, but it basically just looked like like a Monet viewed without glasses from 400 feet away. So it was illegible and really frustrating. And then I was about to go back to my polyester plate of just do a black and white and just make it really simple. And then I had a friend ask me to do some prints for her for a greeting card series, and she let me use her letterpress. And I said, can I just print some things afterwards for myself? And she said, absolutely, go ahead. So I brought my plates to her, but of course her Chandler and Price was smaller. The chase was smaller than the plates that I had, so my beautifully registered plates had to be cut down. So now I had no registration, which you can see on the edges. Now my beautiful crisp flat line is no longer crisp on the sides because I had to trim them, and so some of my prints came out misaligned and blurry, so I had to print quite a few of them to get the full 18. And then of course I had to introduce a hand element, so I was using charcoal, which is a very friable medium, and having that lift off and having certain elements just not come out duplicated the same. So it was a process. And and the other thing was, it was originally a CMYK image that was 4 plates, and you'll notice that there is no blue in this image that I've presented, and it was just the blue plate was just too overpowering, and it really just flattened everything in the image. But I found that by taking it out, that the red and the yellow really made it kind of a moody, sort of warm, mysterious image that I ended up liking better. So it all turned out well in the end, but my God, it was a process.
Wow, well, it's great to be able to hear these journeys that each of you went through as you were developing your print. You know, for someone who's just looking at the exhibition, they wouldn't necessarily know the struggle that each of us go through to create that final product. And we learn and grow as we go through those things. So thank you for giving us a little window into those transformations, I guess you could say. All right, we have one more question for the group. And I think each of you have touched on this a little bit in your responses so far, but we just want to ask how your studio practices have changed over the last 2 years, or 2+ years at this point. And Laura, I'm going to have you answer first, please.
Sure. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a letterpress and stone lithographer, and those are not processes that one can do casually in the comforts of their second-story studio apartment. So that is not accessible when the studio shut down due to social distancing and COVID requirements. So I had to turn to relief during this time in order to do a lot of the imagery that I wanted. And being not a relief printmaker, it was quite a learning process and really frustrating to sort of backstep in the quality that I'm used to producing, just because I didn't have the fine motor control and the carving ability that I haven't developed. And so it actually was really helpful, because it did help me exercise those skills and improve as a lino cut artist. And it was fun to try different mediums. So you don't get the gradations and the subtleties that you do in litho, and so you just have to picture images differently and structure them in a different way. But then you get also interesting images that you can't get in litho either. So it's been a learning process. I've used my spoon way more in the last 2 years than I have probably in the last 10, but it's been fun. And it's also been reinforcing that, you know, printmaking is in my blood, and even if they take my presses away and shut down the world, I'm going to find a way to continue to produce.
Thank you, Laura. Olga, how have the last few years affected your studio practice?
Thank you for asking. So I am a jack of all trades, which means I paint and I model in 3D and I use Photoshop to paint inside of that. And I sculpt, I do all the things. And casually over the last few years, my art practice is taking on kind of a more subdued kind of style. So I was either painting or drawing, but being confined to my home, it kind of it rose something different inside of me. So usually I'm using all these mediums that are kind of gentle, but I found myself angry. And I wanted to focus on something which allowed me to feel the impact of my hand. So, usually it's pretty gentle, but yeah, I needed something more evident, more precise. I wanted to make a physical mark. I wanted to make a hole in the medium. I wanted to add pressure to the page itself. And I wanted to lose myself in the physicality of like a demanding process. And over these 2 years, I've just elevated my carving tools. I've developed a beautiful mirror shine on my printing spoon. And as I started this journey into full stack development, and it's hard and I don't understand, and then I do understand, I just have the spoon beside me and I just remember the roughness of it when it all kind of started. I remember how old it was lying abandoned in a drawer, and over the course of these 2 years it's just been glossier and glossier and more kind of developed. And I developed it through printmaking over and over and over again. And so anything I do, I always have it beside me, and it's just this constant reminder for me that improvement is just a persistent incremental cycle. Like if you keep doing it, eventually it'll shine. And so that's kind of what this 2 years of confinement has taught me, and that's what I take away with it for the rest of my life.
Thank you, Olga. And Allison, do you want to say anything else about how your studio practice has changed during the pandemic?
Yeah, besides the obvious, but when I left Michigan and moved here, I had a course that like you moved to a new place, I started this new job and had a course in life that I was pretty confident on. And when that all changed, I kind of came back to printmaking. Like it was graphic design. That's what I've been doing this entire time. And everything is very digital based, computer based. And so the last couple of years, it's been kind of reuniting with studio practice. It's like seeing a friend you haven't seen in like 5 years. Like things have changed. You're not the same person. Like that same experience I had in school cannot be recreated, mostly because we don't have like 50 luxurious limestones sitting around. Western's litho studio, so beautiful. Anyways, I know, right? Oh God. So in that, like, it's been a reuniting of, you can't do that anymore. That just doesn't work. But letting go of those things and kind of connecting to the parts that are immutable. Like with printmaking, it's always been for me the idea that no matter what medium I'm working in, it's the harmony that comes from working in the process, the experimentation, the balance of creating things that are identical but in their own way imperfect because they are done by hand. And then just the idea that this is accessible to other people and I can create many and give them away. So kind of reuniting with those aspects that brought a lot of joy into my life. And then from there, it's like, well, what can I do? Well, there's this kitchen litho process that you process tinfoil plates with cola. Let's give it a shot. And so like Olga was saying, Laura was saying, like, these things never leave you no matter which space you're in. The basic idea of imprinting one thing with another thing is such a basic, so primitive sort of a thing that it'll be there no matter what you're working in. So
Wow. Thanks, Allison. All right, we have one final question today, which is where can people learn more about you and your work? So Laura, will you tell us your preferred way to be found and learned about?
Absolutely. So my handle is Pizkit. That's Pizqit. So that is my social media handle across all platforms. My website is just pizkit.com, and then that's probably the best way to find me.
And Olga?
I'm only on Instagram for now, and you can find me at Olgatron. Olgatron is spelled with a 0.
And Allison?
well, if you want unvarnished ADHD, you can find me on Twitter at Sanguinary Novel. That's pretty much anything and everything. And then I have a portfolio website that is in flux. It mostly has graphic design related stuff because I'm freelance and that's it. But and because all of my print projects are old except for this one. So that is glitchprismatic.com. And over time, that'll start to have more print things as once I have a body of work again. So yeah.
Great. And each of those, all of that information will be in the description on this video as well. So if you're interested in learning more about each of these artists, please do so. Thank you so much to the artists Olga Perron, Allison Walker, and Laura Wellington for joining me today to talk about their experiences as participants in the eMERGE print exchange. Please visit the online exhibition and support each of these talented people to sustain and build their careers. I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to the California Society of Printmakers for providing the opportunity to create this project, which has helped me develop new skills, including using Zoom and connect with other artists during a very isolating time. Finally, thanks to all the folks who have viewed this artist talk. I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll check out the other eMERGE exhibition artist talks available on this channel as they are released. May you be well.